In one big town in the east, there lived a man called Chief Oso. People called him the richest man in the land. If you lived in that town, you must know his name. His story was everywhere. On people's lips, in their homes, even in the market. He didn't just have money. No, he had power, fame, respect, and fear. When his car passed, people would rush to the side of the road. Some would wave, some would bow. Even the elders in the community gave him a special seat whenever he visited. Chief Oso did not walk like a normal man. He walked with boldness. He wore expensive clothes. White lace with red caps, gold chains that shone like the sun, and shoes that cost more than some people's land. He had 3 big mansions, one in the city, one in the village, and one close to the sea. Young boys wanted to be like him. They watched his cars zoom past and said, "One day, I go get money like Chief Oso." Young girls too. They loved to hear his name. Some would even pretend they were related to him. But no one really knew how he made his money. Some people said he was a big-time businessman. Others whispered he must be doing something spiritual. Nobody gets that rich just like that. But no matter what they said, one thing was clear: Chief Oso was untouchable. He controlled politicians, kings, and even pastors. When he gave big. He once donated 20 million naira during a church harvest. The whole church stood up and clapped like thunder. His compound was like a palace. There were guards at every corner. His gate was taller than many people's houses. He had dogs big, scary ones that didn't bark without reason. Inside the compound, there were flower gardens, fountains, and even a small zoo. And the cars. Oh, the cars. Chief Oso had cars that looked like space machines. He had Rolls Royce, Bentley, Mercedes, G-Wagon, Lamborghini, and more. When his car stopped at any event, even the crowd would stop talking. Everyone wanted to see who would come out. And of course, it was always him. The man, the mystery, Chief Oso. But behind all this wealth and glory, a story was hiding. A story so deep and painful, it would one day shock the entire town. At that time, nobody knew. They only saw the man with wealth and power. They didn't know his heart was full of secrets. And that was where everything began. Chief Oso was not just rich. His name alone could open doors. Whenever someone wanted to brag, they would say, "El no Chief Oso." And immediately, people would respect them. His name carried weight, like the sound of thunder before a heavy rain. He wasn't always rich, though. Long ago, Chief Oso was just an ordinary trader in a niche main market. He sold building materials, cement, iron rods, roofing sheets, things like that. But from the beginning, he was different. He was bold, smart, and always thinking ahead. While others were busy with small money, Chief Oso was already planning how to buy the whole block. He worked day and night. He didn't waste time gossiping or sitting in beer parlors. People used to say, "This man day chase money like person way wan marry am." One day, Chief Oso disappeared from the market. People started asking, "Where is Oso?" Some said he traveled. Others said he had run mad chasing money. But after 3 years, he returned. And this time, he came back with power and money. Plenty money. He didn't come back to his small shop in the market. No, he came back with a convoy of 6 black SUVs, each one shining like fresh oil. Policemen followed him. Even soldiers guarded his gate. He built his mansion near the town's river. The house had 20 rooms, a swimming pool, and even a lift. In the village, no one had seen anything like it. The elders were the first to visit him. They gave him a title, Oso Is, Muo, meaning a chief with the spirit of kings. From that day, everyone knew Chief Oso had arrived. He started attending every major event. Weddings, burials, child dedication, traditional festivals. You name it. If Chief Oso was not there, the event looked empty. And when he entered, my brother, you must see the way people rushed to greet him. His boys would come down first, open the car door, and then the great chief would step out, wearing agbada that swept the floor. The air would change immediately. Some people feared him. Others loved him, but everyone respected him. Even the king of the town once said, if not for Chief Oso, this community would still be in darkness. He built roads. He gave out scholarships. He donated boreholes to villages. But behind all this generosity, Chief Oso was a man with secrets. Secrets only known by the walls of his mansion. Because while the whole city was calling his name with joy, his family was beginning to feel something was wrong. Before all the power and fame, when Chief Oso was still climbing the ladder of success, there was a woman who stood by him. Her name was Lolo Nena. She was not the loud type. Quiet, respectful, and full of wisdom. She came from a good family, and when she married Oso, he was still a small trader. But even then, she believed in him. While other women were chasing rich men, Nena stayed with her husband through the struggles. She cooked with firewood. She helped him in the shop. Sometimes, she even borrowed money from her family to support him. So, when the riches came, Chief Oso didn't forget her. He gave her a wedding that the town would never forget. They called it the Golden Marriage. The whole town was invited. Musicians came from Lagos. There was more food than anyone could eat. Gifts were everywhere. Cars, cows, wrappers, even plots of land. Nena looked like a queen. She wore a rich red and gold lace with coral beads on her neck and arms. Oso wore his white agbada and red cap. They danced and danced while people sprayed them with bundles of money. It was like a movie. Everyone said, this couple is blessed. They moved into their big mansion, and life was sweet. Everything they wanted, they had. Chief Oso made sure Lolo Nena lacked nothing. He bought her gold jewelry, designer clothes, even a car with her name on the number plate. Whenever she stepped out, people greeted her with respect. They called her the wife of the lion. She gave birth to 4 strong, healthy children. 2 boys and 2 girls. Each one more beautiful than the next. The whole family looked like royalty. People used to say, God really blessed this woman. She followed her husband when he had nothing, and now look at her. But what they don't know was that riches don't always mean peace. Yes, Chief Oso gave her everything. Except his heart. Because even though he was married, even though he had 4 children, there was a space in his life that was being filled by another woman. A woman hiding in the shadows, waiting for her time to shine. But for now, Lolo Nena was the queen of the mansion. She believed her husband was faithful. She believed her home was strong. She had no idea what was waiting for her just around the corner. After their grand wedding, Chief Oso and Lolo Nena settled into their mansion and started raising their family. And oh, what a beautiful family they had. Their first child was a boy, Chibuzo, tall, bold, and very intelligent. From a young age, he acted like a leader. He wanted to know everything his father was doing. Whenever Oso had visitors, Chibuzo would quietly sit and listen. People would say, this boy go follow him papa footsteps. Next came Adora, the first daughter. Gentle, soft-spoken, and very smart. She was always reading or helping her mother in the kitchen. Nena used to call her my twin, because Adora acted just like her. Then came the second son, Ebuka. He was the funny one. Always laughing, always running around the house. But even with all the play, his brain was sharp. Teachers always praised him in school. The last child was Chiamaka. A little princess with big dreams. She loved dressing up and pretending to be a lawyer or a doctor. Daddy, when I grow up, I'll build a hospital in our village, she once told Chief Oso. Their mansion was always full of joy. The children had everything: private tutors, drivers, toys from abroad, clothes from London, and even their own swimming pool. Every morning, they left for school in a black SUV with a driver. When they returned, they had lessons, snacks, and sometimes, music classes. Nena made sure they were trained well. Even though they were rich, she wanted them to be humble, respectful, and God-fearing. Every Sunday, they went to church as a family. They sat in the front row. People always watched them and whispered, see how rich people still serve God. Na so I suppose be. But even in all this perfection, something strange was happening. Chief Oso was slowly pulling away. He no longer ate dinner with the family. He stayed out late at night. He traveled more often. And when the kids asked, "Daddy, where are you going?" he would just smile and say, "Business." Nena noticed it, but she didn't say anything yet. She believed that marriage needed patience. She told herself, he is just working hard to provide for us. But deep inside her heart, a small fear began to grow. Because no matter how happy the house looked, a shadow had started to fall over their home. And very soon, that shadow would turn into something bigger. In another part of town, not far from Chief Oso's mansion, lived a young woman, named Amara. She was beautiful. The kind of beauty that made men turn their heads and women whisper. Her skin glowed like honey in the sun. Her smile could melt even the hardest heart. And her voice, sweet like music. Amara didn't come from a rich family. In fact, she grew up struggling. She sold fruits on the roadside when she was young and later worked in a hair salon. Life was not easy for her, but she always believed, one day, my life will change. And it did. The day she met Chief Oso. He saw her one evening while driving past a hotel. She was standing outside, talking to a friend. Oso told his driver to stop. "Who is that girl?" he asked. From that moment, Amara's life changed. Chief Oso took her number. He started visiting her. At first, Amara didn't believe he would come back. But he did. Again and again. He gave her money. He bought her a small car. He rented an apartment for her. A beautiful place with tiled floors, air conditioning, and fine furniture. People began to talk. Some said, that girl must have jazz. Others said, she's just lucky. But Amara didn't care. She was enjoying her new life. At first, she called him sir. Then she started calling him daddy. Soon, it became my love. Chief Oso was drawn to her youth, her beauty, her energy. With her, he felt young again. She didn't ask him about business or meetings. She just made him laugh. He started spending more time with her. When his wife asked where he was, he said, "I'm in Lagos for a contract." But he was in town, eating Amara's cooking, lying in her arms, laughing like a young boy. Amara knew he had a wife and children. But she didn't care. In her mind, she said, if I can't have all of him, I will take the part he gives me. She started dreaming of more. "I want to have a child for you," she told him one night. Chief Oso laughed. "Let's enjoy first," he said. But Amara was not joking. She didn't want to be just a side chick. She wanted to be his second wife. And slowly, without anyone knowing, she started planting her roots deeper into his life. As time went by, Chief Oso's secret relationship with Amara grew deeper. What started as simple visits became full weekends. What started as silence became lies. At home, Lolo Nena was feeling the distance. Her husband no longer smiled like before. He no longer told her about his business. Sometimes, he would leave on Friday and return on Monday without explanation. She tried to speak. "My husband, are you okay? Is anything wrong?" she asked one night. But Chief Oso just waved her off. "I'm fine. Just tired. Work is too much." Nena kept quiet, but inside her, a storm was brewing. The children also noticed. Chibuzo, the first son, once asked, "Mummy, why doesn't Daddy eat with us anymore?" But she didn't know what to say. How do you explain to a child that his father now lived two lives? Meanwhile, Amara was getting bold. She no longer waited for Chief Oso to call. She called him anytime she wanted. She demanded more money, more attention, more visits. She even started posting coded photos on social media. Her car keys, her shoes, her expensive bag with captions like, "My king takes care of me." People began to suspect. Gossips in the town whispered, "Is it true that Chief Oso is keeping a girl in town? I heard she's even planning to carry Belle." But no one could speak directly. Chief Oso was too powerful. His bodyguards, were always watching. Lolo Nena's heart was heavy. She prayed, cried, fasted, hoping her husband would come back to his senses. But things only got worse. One evening, while he was dressing up to go out, she stood at the door. Is this how our marriage will end? She asked softly. Chief Oso didn't answer. He looked at her, sighed, and said, "Stop stressing me, Nena. I've done enough for this family." Those words broke her heart. After everything they had been through, was this the reward? She sat alone in the bedroom that night, looking at their wedding photo, tears falling down her cheeks. The man she loved was still alive, but he was no longer hers. And far away, Amara was smiling, wearing a red nightgown, waiting for Chief Oso to arrive. Children may be young, but they are not blind. At first, Chief Oso's children didn't understand what was happening. But as the months passed, they began to feel the change. Chibuzo, now a teenager, saw how his father avoided family meals and school events. He noticed the secret phone calls, the strange perfume on his father's clothes, and the long weekends when their father disappeared without a word. One evening, Chibuzo asked his mother, "Mummy, is Daddy cheating on you?" Lolo Nena froze. The question hit her like a bullet. "Who told you that?" she whispered. "No one. I just see things." Nena sighed. She looked at her son and said, "Pray for your father. He is not himself." Adora, the eldest daughter, cried one night after school. Her friend had shown her a photo online. It was Amara, smiling beside a luxury car, with a caption, "King spoils his queen." Adora recognized the car. It was one of her father's. "Is this Daddy's girlfriend?" she asked her mum, shaking, confused, and embarrassed. Nena done. Answer. She just hugged her daughter tightly. Even Ebuka and Chiamaka, the younger ones, knew that their father no longer tucked them into bed, no longer laughed with them in the living room, and no longer came to school functions. Their once happy mansion now felt cold, broken, and empty. But in Amara's apartment, life was sweet. She posted photos of fancy dinners, trips to Abuja, shopping in Dubai, and spa days. She told her friends, "Soon, he'll marry me. I'll be his second wife. His children will call me Auntie Mama." Back at home, Chief Oso began to treat Nena like a stranger. He no longer looked at her face. When she spoke, he answered with silence or anger. He locked his phone, changed passwords, and spent most of his time outside the house. One night, Nena said, "Oso, you're losing your family." And he replied, "This family will be fine. Focus on your children." She turned away, tears in her eyes. But her heart was already planning what to do next. Because sometimes, when a woman is quiet for too long, she begins to gather her strength for a storm. Lolo Nena had always been a strong woman. She stood beside Chief Oso when he was a struggling businessman. She helped him build his empire, raised his children, and kept their home in peace. But now, she was becoming a shadow in her own house. Each day, she woke up early, cooked for the children, made sure they went to school, and sat alone in silence. Her husband barely said a word to her. When he came home, it was either late at night or just to pick something and rush out again. He no longer looked into her eyes. He no longer touched her hands. He no longer called her my queen. People in the community started whispering. "Have you heard? Chief Oso now lives with another woman in town. I pity that his wife. After all these years." But Nena kept her head high. She smiled in public. She greeted everyone politely. She dressed neatly. But only God knew how many times she cried at night. She would go into her room, kneel beside the bed, and pray. "God, don't let my children suffer. Give me strength. Touch his heart. Bring him back to us." Sometimes, she would open her wedding album, looking at their old photos. She remembered how happy they once were. She remembered the promises they made on their wedding day. But now, her husband was someone else. He was Amara's man now. And Amara had become bold. She posted videos of her dancing in designer clothes. She bragged to friends, "That man belongs to me now. The first wife can cry all she wants." One day, Nena visited the market, and a woman came close to her and whispered, "Lolo, you are a good woman. Don't let this situation kill you. You are still the wife. God is watching." That night, Nena made a decision. "I will not fight dirty. I will not curse. I will hold my peace." The God that sees all will judge. But inside her, a quiet fire was burning. Because no matter how calm a river looks, when the storm comes, it will surely rise. She wore expensive clothes, used the latest iPhones, and drove around town in luxury cars. People in salons and boutiques now called her Madame Amara. Her confidence grew every day. Chief Oso had rented her a bigger apartment. Almost like a mini palace. It had a private gym, a swimming pool, and marble floors. He even paid for her younger sister's school fees and set up a hair business for her cousin. She had power now, power that came from Chief Oso's pocket. Every time she walked into a place, heads turned. Some admired her, some hated her, but she didn't care. She was living her dream. Every weekend, Chief Oso was with her. He came with bags of money. They went on trips. They threw small parties. Amara would cook, dance, laugh, and sit on his lap like a queen. "Why are you still with that old woman?" She asked him one night. Chief Oso laughed. "She's the mother of my kids. That is all. No feelings anymore." Amara smiled. "You know you are mine now, right?" He nodded. "I know." She started calling herself the second wife, even though they weren't officially married. She told her friends, "Very soon, he will do the traditional rites. I'm not just a side chick anymore." But her hunger was growing. She wanted more. She wanted to be seen in public with him. She wanted to visit his office. She wanted her name to appear in his documents. And most of all, she wanted a child. That would seal everything. Meanwhile, Chief Oso's family continued to suffer in silence. Lolo Nena became quieter. The children no longer asked about their father. The house felt like a body without a soul. But Chief Oso didn't notice. He was too busy enjoying his second life. What he done know was that Amara's love was starting to turn into control. The more he gave, the more she demanded. And slowly, the trap was closing in. It was sudden. One day, he was walking down the stairs to his office, and the next, he couldn't stand on his own. His head felt heavy, his chest tight, and his body began to ache in ways he couldn't explain. He thought it was just a small cold, but the pain didn't go away. He went to the hospital, where doctors did several tests. They gave him medication, but his condition only worsened. Nena was at the hospital with him. She stayed by his side day and night. At first, he ignored her, but slowly, he started to feel guilty. He saw the care in her eyes, the kindness that had never faded, even after everything. Amara, on the other hand, was nowhere to be seen. Chief Oso had tried to reach her, but she didn't answer his calls. She sent a text. "I'm busy with something. Get well soon." It hurt him to read that. For the first time, he realized how shallow their relationship had become. But it was too late. The doctors finally told him the truth. His illness was severe. It wasn't a simple flu. He had a chronic condition that had worsened over the years. They gave him a few months to live, but that was all. Chief Oso was devastated. His life was ending, and he had no one to blame but himself. His health had been failing because of the stress, the secret life, and the neglect of his own well-being. For the first time in a long while, he thought of his family. Nena, the woman who had stayed by his side when he had nothing. Chibuzo, Adora, Ebuka, and Chiamaka. The children who needed their father. He asked the doctors, "Is there anything I can do?" They shook their heads. "It's too late. You must focus on your final days." That night, Nena sat beside him, holding his hand. She was silent, but her eyes spoke volumes. She had suffered for so long, but now she was faced with a man who had lost everything. His health, his family, his happiness. "I am sorry," he whispered to her. "I have made many mistakes." Nena just nodded, tears filling her eyes. "You were the love of my life, Oso. But you hurt me too much. I will always pray for your peace." He held her hand tighter. "If I could go back, I would have done things differently." For the first time, Chief Oso truly realized the value of the woman he had neglected. And yet, he knew it was too late. In the distance, Amara remained out of reach, lost in her world of material pleasures. She had no idea what was coming. She didn't know that the man who had given her everything was now faced with his own mortality. And as Nena stayed by his side, watching him weaken, a sense of quiet strength grew in her. She had always believed in forgiveness, but now, she needed to make a choice. Would she remain by his side until the end, or would she leave him to face his consequences alone? Days turned into weeks, and Chief Oso's condition continued to worsen. His once powerful body had become frail, and his energy was nearly gone. Nena remained at his side, refusing to leave him, even though the pain of his betrayal still stung deeply. The children, too, visited him regularly. Chibuzo, Adora, and the younger ones came to see their father, but each visit was more heartbreaking than the last. They didn't recognize the man they had once known. Chief Oso had become a shadow of himself. Despite the tension between them, Nena continued to care for him. She cooked his favorite meals, rubbed his back when he coughed, and whispered comforting words in his ear when he cried out in pain. "I am sorry, Nena," he would whisper, his voice weak. "I don't mean for any of this to happen." She would just nod, her heart heavy with the memories of their happy days and the mistakes that had led them here. Amara, on the other hand, stayed away. At first, she sent gifts and flowers, but as Chief Oso's illness became more serious, her communication slowed. Her messages became shorter. "I hope you get well soon," she would text. But there was no real emotion behind it. Nena saw through it all. She knew that Amara was already thinking about her next move. She didn't care about Oso. She cared about the lifestyle he had given her. The day Chief Oso's health reached its lowest point, he called for a family meeting. His children and wife gathered around him, unsure of what he would say. He could barely speak, but he managed to whisper, "I have failed you all." The room went silent. The children stared at their father, shocked. "I was selfish. I ignored you. I hurt you. But I want you to know that I love you all. And I'm sorry." Tears filled Nena's eyes. She had waited so long to hear him say those words, but now they came too late. "I've made so many mistakes," Chief Oso continued, his voice barely audible. "I should have stayed with you, Nena. I should have been a better father. But now, it's too late." His words felt like a final goodbye, and even though Nena had spent so many years hurt by him, a part of her heart still ached for the man she had once loved. "Daddy, done go," Chibuzo whispered, trying to hold back his tears. "I'm sorry," Oso repeated, his voice breaking. "But it's time for me to go." The family sat in silence, the weight of his words hanging in the air. It felt like the end of an era. The man they had once known was slipping away, and no one knew how to stop it. As the night wore on, Chief Oso grew weaker. His breathing slowed, and his eyes began to close. He held Nena's hand tightly, as though he was afraid to let go. And then, in the quiet of the night, Chief Oso passed away. His body lay still, his soul leaving the world he had once controlled. The family was left in shock. The man who had built an empire, who had everything he could ever want, was now gone. And with him went all the power, the wealth, and the secrets. Nena sat by his side, holding his hand as she had done in the past. She done cry. She done scream. Instead, she closed her eyes and whispered a quiet prayer. Chief Oso's death had been expected, but it still hit the family like a ton of bricks. The news spread quickly through the community, and people came to pay their respects, some genuinely mourning his passing, while others came to see the end of his reign. Nena kept her emotions hidden. She remained calm, focused on organizing the funeral. The children were in shock. They had lost their father, a man they had once admired, but now, they felt nothing but sorrow for the man he had become in the end. The house felt emptier than ever. The mansion, once full of laughter and noise, now stood silent, as if mourning itself. Amara finally showed up, but only after Chief Oso had been buried. She arrived with a few of her friends, dressed in expensive black attire, making sure everyone noticed her presence. She walked up to Nena, a look of feigned sadness on her face. "I'm so sorry for your loss," Amara said, her voice calm but sharp. Nena barely looked at her. "You've come late." Amara ignored the jab. "I know this must be hard for you. But we need to discuss the future, don't you think? Future? Nena asked, narrowing her eyes. What do you mean? Amara took a deep breath. Now that he's gone, I'm sure there are things to settle. I've been thinking. Maybe it's time I take my place in this family. Oso promised me a lot. I'm sure you understand. Nena's heart tightened. The audacity. The disrespect. But, she held her ground, her voice cold. You're too late. Everything Oso promised you was a lie. You are not a part of this family. Amara's face tightened, but she forced a smile. We'll see. We. As Amara turned to leave, she walked over to Chibuzo, who had been standing quietly by the door. She gave him a playful smile. You are a good boy. I'm sure your father would have wanted us to stay in touch. Chibuzo didn't respond. He just stared at her coldly. Later that night, Nena gathered the children in the living room. They sat together, facing the harsh truth. This house belongs to all of us now, she said, her voice firm. Your father may be gone, but his legacy lives on in you. We are a family, and nothing will break us. Chibuzo nodded, a sense of responsibility settling over him. Adora, Ebuka, and Chiamaka listened quietly, taking in their mother's words. Nena knew the road ahead would be easy. Chief Oso had left a legacy of wealth, but that wealth was now a burden. There were businesses to manage, assets to protect, and an empire to rebuild. But she was ready. The world had seen the end of Oso's story, but Nena and her children were just beginning theirs. In the days that followed, Amara made her move. She tried to stake her claim on some of Oso's assets, but Nena was already steps ahead. She had made sure that everything was in order before the funeral, ensuring that the children would inherit their father's wealth. Amara's dreams of becoming the official second wife were crushed. She tried to contact lawyers, but there was no legal basis for her claims. Her world began to unravel. Amara disappeared from the scene, her dreams of wealth and power fading into the background. Meanwhile, Nena took charge. She worked hard to keep the family together. The children started to help her with the businesses. Chibuzo took over his father's construction company, Adora worked with Nena on the real estate investments, and Ebuka and Chiamaka began learning the ropes of the family's other ventures. They were just living in the shadow of their father's wealth. They were building their own legacy. Nena stood tall. She had lost a husband, but she had not lost her strength. She had lost a partner, but she had not lost her family. The story of Chief Oso had ended, but the story of his children and wife was just beginning. Months passed since Chief Oso's death, and the world slowly returned to normal. Or at least, to a new version of normal. Nena and the children had worked tirelessly to manage the businesses, and their efforts were beginning to show results. The family was making strides, moving forward, and finding their own place in the world that Chief Oso had once ruled. But despite the new beginnings, the shadow of his betrayal still loomed over them. Amara was gone, having faded from the public eye as quickly as she had entered it. Her attempts to claim a share of Oso's fortune had failed, and without Oso's wealth to hold her up, she was left with nothing but empty promises and shattered dreams. There were whispers in the community about her whereabouts, but none of it mattered now. The family was stronger than ever. Nena had taken full control of the family's finances and assets. She made wise decisions, consulting with experts and advisors to make sure everything was handled properly. Chibuzo, now more mature and focused, had taken a leadership role in the construction business, working hard to expand it. Adora's keen eye for real estate had turned their investments into profitable ventures. Ebuka and Chiamaka, though younger, had proven their abilities by managing smaller projects. They were no longer just the family of the late Chief Oso. They were a family making their own mark on the world. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Nena looked at her children with pride. Look at what we've accomplished in such a short time, she said, her voice full of warmth and determination. We've turned the loss of your father into an opportunity. We've built something new, something all our own. Chibuzo smiled, glancing at his siblings. We've done more than just survive, he said. We're thriving. Adora raised her glass. Here's to new beginnings. They all toasted to the future. But just as they were settling into their new life, an unexpected visitor arrived at their doorstep. It was a lawyer, someone they had never seen before. He had a letter in his hand, and his expression was serious. "I'm here on behalf of Amara," the lawyer said. Nena's heart sank. She had been hoping that Amara would stay out of their lives for good. But it seemed that the trouble was far from over. The lawyer handed over the letter, and Nena opened it carefully. As she read, her face grew pale. The letter was a demand for a share of Chief Oso's estate, citing the promise Oso had made to Amara during their affair. "Is this some kind of joke?" Nena muttered, looking at the lawyer in disbelief. "This is a formal claim," the lawyer said. "Amara believes she is entitled to a part of the inheritance. She is requesting a settlement." Nena stood up, her mind racing. She had worked so hard to secure the family's future, and now, out of nowhere, Amara was trying to undo it all. She looked at her children. "We'll handle this," she said, her voice firm. "We won't let anyone take what belongs to us." The lawyer nodded. "I suggest you speak to your attorney. Amara is prepared to take this to court." Nena stared at the letter for a moment, then crumpled it in her hand. She had no time for games. She had worked too hard to let Amara's selfishness threaten everything they had built. "Let her try," Nena said, her voice full of resolve. "We'll fight for what is rightfully ours." As the lawyer left, Nena turned to her children. "We've come a long way, but we have to be ready. This fight won't be easy." Chibuzo nodded. "We'll fight for what's ours, Mom. We'll protect the family." Adora smiled. "We won't let Amara win." It was clear now. The battle was over. The legacy of Chief Oso was far from settled, and the family was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. But Nena had no fear. She had already fought the hardest battle of her life, and she was about to back down now. The road ahead would be tough, but with her children by her side, she knew they would overcome anything. This was their new beginning, a family bound not by a past of wealth and power, but by love, loyalty, and strength. The days following the lawyer visit were filled with tension. Nena knew that Amara would stop at nothing to get her hands on what she believed she was entitled to. The legal documents the lawyer had handed over were just the beginning of what was sure to be a long, complicated battle. Nena immediately contacted a trusted lawyer, Barrister Okachukwu, a sharp, no-nonsense man with a reputation for winning difficult cases. He was the best at handling property disputes and inheritance matters. If anyone could help them through this, it was him. At their first meeting, Nena laid out everything for Barrister Okachukwu. "Amara thinks she has a claim to my husband's estate. But she is nothing more than a mistake from the past. There's no way she's getting anything." Barrister Okachukwu adjusted his glasses, his face serious. "I understand your concerns, Nena. But the law can be tricky, especially when it comes to marriage and inheritance. Amara may have her reasons for making this claim, and we need to be prepared." The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, court hearings, and endless paperwork. Barrister Okachukwu worked tirelessly, building their defense against Amara's claims. Nena, meanwhile, kept her family grounded, focusing on their businesses and keeping them on track. Chibuzo continued his work in the construction company, Adora handled real estate deals, and the younger children stayed busy with school and family activities. But despite their efforts, Amara's presence loomed large. Her attorneys were relentless, and it was clear she had money and resources behind her. She was going to give up easily. One day, Amara showed up at the courthouse, a smug smile on her face. She was dressed in the finest clothes, as always, her hair styled perfectly. She walked past Nena and her children, not even acknowledging them. Her confidence was unnerving. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" Amara asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You know, I could make things a lot easier for you, Nena. All you have to do is give me what I want, and I'll disappear." Nena's face was stone cold. "You'll never get a penny from me, Amara. You've had enough. You took enough from my family." Amara only smiled, her eyes glinting with malice. "We'll see about that." Inside the courtroom, the battle intensified. Amara's lawyers presented their case, claiming that Oso had promised her a share of the estate. They even brought forward some letters and documents that seemed to support her claims. Nena's heart sank as she listened to the testimony. Could these documents be real? Had Oso really promised Amara something he hadn't told her about? But Barrister Okachukwu was shaken. He quickly countered every point, showing that the documents presented by Amara were either forged or irrelevant. He pointed out the lack of any legal marriage between Oso and Amara, as well as the clear terms of his will, which had been carefully crafted to ensure that his children and wife were taken care of. "We are not here to entertain lies," Barrister Okachukwu said, his voice firm and unwavering. Chief Oso's estate was passed down according to his wishes. No one has the right to take what does not belong to them. Amara's face turned red with frustration, but she didn't give up. She fought back with accusations, claiming that she had been wronged by Oso's family and that they were trying to cheat her out of her rightful inheritance. But Nena was not backing down. She sat quietly in the courtroom, listening intently, but all the while, her mind was focused on the one thing that mattered most: protecting her children and ensuring that Amara would not tear apart the life they had worked so hard to build. As the trial continued, tensions grew. The courtroom was often packed with people eager to see the outcome of this high-profile case. But Nena, with her calm and steady demeanor, refused to let the pressure get to her. She knew what she had to do. One day, after a particularly heated exchange in court, Nena stood up. "Your Honor," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I have nothing to hide. I am here for my children. I am here for my family. We've lost enough already, and we will not lose again." The judge, a stern and experienced man, looked at Nena for a long moment before speaking. "This case is far from over," the judge said. "But you make a compelling argument, Mrs. Oso. I'll take all the evidence into consideration." Amara's smug expression faltered for the first time. She had underestimated Nena's strength. As the weeks wore on, Nena's family continued to rally behind her. They were all in this together. They weren't going to let anyone tear apart what Chief Oso had built. Not Amara, not anyone. The battle was far from over, but Nena had faith. With her children by her side and Barrister Okachukwu's expertise guiding them, they would prevail. They would protect their legacy. As the court case dragged on, the strain began to show. Nena and her children, despite their outward strength, were growing tired. The long hours spent in court, the endless legal documents, and the constant pressure from Amara's team took a toll on them all. The peaceful life they had worked so hard to rebuild was now a distant memory. But through it all, Nena remained determined. She kept pushing forward, refusing to let Amara's claims tear her family apart. Even when the days were long and the nights sleepless, Nena found strength in her children. They were the ones who had motivated her to keep going. The legacy of Chief Oso was theirs now, and she wasn't about to let anyone take it from them. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling day in court, Nena sat in her office, staring at the papers scattered before her. The thought of how much had been lost, the dreams they had once shared, the trust that had been broken, was overwhelming. But then, as if on cue, Chibuzo walked into the room, his face calm and collected. "Mom, we've got something," he said, his voice steady but full of excitement. Nena looked up, momentarily distracted from the weight of the legal battle. "What do you mean?" Chibuzo handed her a small folder. "I've been working with Barrister Okachukwu. We've found something." Nena took the folder and opened it, her eyes scanning the contents. It was an old document. A letter from Oso to his lawyer, dated long before his death. In it, Oso made it clear that Amara had no legal claim to anything. He had written about their brief relationship and how he had supported her, but had always kept their affairs separate from his family. "It is a legal loophole, Mom," Chibuzo said, leaning against the desk. "This letter shows that Oso never intended for Amara to inherit anything. The will he left was the final word on the matter. She has no grounds to challenge it." Nena's heart skipped a beat. This was the break they had been waiting for. She quickly reached for her phone and called Barrister Okachukwu. Within hours, they were back in court, armed with this new evidence. As they presented the letter from Oso, the courtroom grew tense. Amara's attorneys tried to dismiss it, but Barrister Okachukwu's argument was airtight. The letter was clear. Oso had intended for his family to inherit everything, and Amara's claims were baseless. The judge, after reviewing the new evidence, called for a recess. The next day, he made his ruling. Amara's case was thrown out. The victory was sweet, but it was without its costs. Nena knew that while they had won this battle, the scars of the past would linger. Amara's impact on their lives could never be erased completely. But one thing was certain. They had prevailed. As Nena sat in her office that evening, looking out the window at the city below, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in months. The legal battle was over, and now they could finally begin to heal. They could focus on what truly mattered: each other, and the future they would build together. Her children, too, were growing stronger. Chibuzo had become a natural leader, and Adora's sharp business mind was helping them secure new deals. Ebuka and Chiamaka had matured beyond their years, learning the importance of loyalty and hard work. Nena had seen her children grow from a vulnerable family into a strong, united force. They were no longer just trying to survive. They were thriving. One evening, as they all gathered around the dinner table, Nena looked at her children with pride. "We've been through a lot, haven't not we?" Chibuzo nodded. "But we made it through. And we're better for it." Adora smiled. "Stronger than ever." Nena raised her glass. "Here is to new beginnings." The family clinked their glasses, toasting not just to their victory in court, but to everything they had been through. They had come out the other side stronger and more united than ever before. But as the night drew to a close, Nena couldn't shake the feeling that Amara was not completely gone from their lives. Though defeated, Amara was a woman who never gave up easily. Nena could not let her guard down just yet. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, Nena could see the light at the end of the tunnel. The past was behind them, and the future was full of promise. Their legacy, forged in the fires of hardship and pain, was now in their hands. And no one, not even Amara, would be able to take that away. The courtroom drama was behind them, but the emotional toll lingered. Even though they had emerged victorious, Nena knew that the scars of the past would not disappear overnight. The wounds caused by Amara's betrayal, Oso's infidelity, and the family's struggles still ran deep. They had rebuilt their lives, but the process of healing was just beginning. The days that followed were filled with quiet reflection. Nena spent much of her time with her children, trying to strengthen the bond they had once had before the chaos. She had always been a strong, independent woman, but now she realized that her children needed more than just a mother. They needed a friend, a guide who would help them navigate the emotional aftermath of everything they had endured. One afternoon, Chibuzo came to her office, holding a letter in his hand. It was from a counselor, a professional who specialized in helping families deal with grief and trauma. "Mom," he said, handing it over. "I think it's time we talk to someone. We've all been through so much. I can see it in all of us." Nena paused, looking at the letter. She had considered therapy before, believing that their family's strength alone would be enough to get them through. But now, she realized that her son was right. The emotional wounds were deeper than she had acknowledged, and they needed help to heal. "I think you're right, Chibuzo," she said, her voice soft. "It is time we start healing. Not just on the outside, but on the inside too." They made an appointment with the counselor, and soon, they were all sitting together in a comfortable, warm room, speaking openly about their pain. The counselor, a woman with a calm and compassionate demeanor, listened carefully as each of them spoke about their feelings. Chiamaka, the youngest, spoke first. "I miss Dad," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "Even though he wasn't always the best, I still miss him." Ebuka nodded in agreement. "Me too. It is like there's a part of me that's still angry, but another part of me wants to remember the good things." Adora, usually so composed, spoke up next. "I'm angry. I'm angry at what he did. But I also feel like I'm carrying his legacy now. I'm trying to build something better, but it feels like a huge weight on my shoulders." The counselor nodded thoughtfully. "It is completely normal to feel conflicted. You've lost a father, but you've also gained a sense of responsibility. That's a lot to process. Nena, who had remained quiet until then, finally spoke. I feel like I'm carrying the weight of everything on my own. I've had to make so many decisions, and it's been hard to know what's right. I don't want to fail you all, but sometimes it feels like I'm drowning. The counselor smiled gently. You don't have to do this alone. It's okay to ask for help, and it is okay to admit that you're struggling. You're all carrying a heavy load, and you need each other more than ever. The conversation went on for hours, but it was clear to Nena that they were making progress. For the first time in a long time, they were not just fighting external battles. They were fighting the internal ones. They were learning how to forgive, how to let go of the pain, and how to move forward together. The days that followed brought a sense of quiet peace to their home. Though the process of healing was slow, the family was finally beginning to understand that they could not just survive. They needed to heal, to find peace within themselves before they could truly thrive. Nena spent more time with her children, encouraging them to follow their passions and pursue their dreams. Chibuzo's business had continued to grow, Adora's real estate ventures were thriving, and even Ebuka and Chiamaka had found ways to contribute to the family's success. They also began to focus more on building their future, not just maintaining what Oso had left behind. Together, they started new projects, with a focus on community development and giving back. They knew that their family's wealth, while significant, meant little without purpose. One evening, as they gathered around the dinner table, Nena looked at her children, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. Look at what we've built, not just in wealth, but in love and support. We've come a long way. Chibuzo smiled, looking around the table. We're stronger than ever. And we're just getting started. Adora nodded. We're not just a family of inheritance anymore. We're a family of vision. Nena raised her glass, her eyes shining with emotion. To us. To our new beginning. They clinked their glasses, united in their commitment to one another, knowing that the road ahead would not always be easy. But for the first time, they were ready to face it as a family, with love, strength, and a renewed sense of purpose. As time passed and the family slowly began to heal, things seemed to settle down. Nena and her children had worked hard to rebuild their lives and strengthen their bond. They were focused on moving forward. Until something unexpected happened. It started with a letter. It was not from the courts, nor was it from any of the businesses they worked with. It was an anonymous letter, with no return address, slipped quietly under the door of Nena's office. She opened it cautiously, her fingers trembling as she unfolded the neatly written note. The words inside were simple, but they hit her like a freight train. I know the truth about your husband's past. There's more you don't know. You've been living a lie. Nena's heart pounded in her chest as she read the words over and over. A lie. What could this mean? Was there something about Oso's past that she hadn't uncovered? She thought she knew everything about her late husband, but now, doubts began to creep in. She quickly showed the letter to Chibuzo and Adora. I don't know who sent this or why, she said, trying to stay calm. But I need to know what it means. I need answers. Chibuzo furrowed his brow. It could be a trick. Amara's game isn't over yet. But I agree, we can't ignore this. The family rallied together to figure out what to do. It was clear that someone, whether it was Amara or someone else, was trying to stir the pot once more. But who? And why now? Nena decided to take action. She contacted Barrister Okachukwu again, explaining the letter and her concerns. He, too, seemed troubled. We need to find out who sent this and what they mean by it, he said. It's possible that someone is trying to destabilize your family once again. But we have to be cautious. As they dug deeper, they uncovered something strange. Oso had another will, one that was not mentioned in the official documents. It was hidden away in a secret compartment of his office, one that Nena had never thought to search. It was an old, faded document, dated years before the more recent will that clearly divided everything between Nena and their children. The second will was far more complicated. It mentioned a trust fund for a child that Nena did not recognize. There were no names on the document, only a series of initials, but the wording was clear. This child was to receive a substantial sum from the estate, and Oso had set aside money for their education and future. Nena felt a chill run down her spine. Was there another child? A hidden secret, a past Oso had never shared with her. Her mind raced as the possibilities flooded in. They couldn't ignore it any longer. Barrister Okachukwu advised them to investigate further, and they hired a private investigator to dig into Oso's past. The investigator began to search through old records, contacts, and personal connections that Oso had maintained throughout his life. Days turned into weeks, and then, one afternoon, the investigator returned with shocking news. Oso had, in fact, fathered a child before he met Nena, a son who had been living in secret. The boy, now in his late 20s, had been living with relatives in a different city, and Oso had been providing for him financially without Nena's knowledge. The news hit Nena like a thunderclap. She felt numb, as though the ground beneath her feet had disappeared. How could Oso have kept this from her? Why hadn't he told her about this son? And why hadn't the boy ever come forward before? Chibuzo, ever the protector, immediately stepped in. Mom, we need to get to the bottom of this. We need to meet this person, figure out what he wants. Nena, still reeling from the shock, nodded slowly. You're right, Chibuzo. We can let this man claim part of our legacy without understanding his role in all of this. The family arranged to meet with the young man. His name was Chijoke, and when they finally met, he was not what they had expected. Chijoke was quiet, humble, and seemed genuinely unaware of the drama that had surrounded the Oso family for years. He had grown up thinking Oso was a distant relative who had supported him financially, but the truth about his parentage had been kept from him, too. I did not know my father, Chijoke said softly as they sat across from one another. But I've always felt like there was more to my story. Now that I know the truth, I just want to understand. I don't want trouble. I just want to know who I am. Nena's heart softened. For a moment, she saw in Chijoke the same pain that her own children had felt. The yearning for connection, for understanding, was something she could relate to. But still, the question remained. What did this mean for the Oso family's future? The discovery of Chijoke, Oso's secret son, left Nena and her children in a whirlwind of emotions. They had hoped for a fresh start, a life free of secrets and unexpected twists, but it seemed that the past was determined to resurface, no matter how much they tried to move forward. Chijoke's arrival was both a revelation and a puzzle. The family had been through so much already, and now they had to confront the reality of this new family member. Was he entitled to a share of Oso's legacy? Did he even want that? And if so, how would this change the future they had worked so hard to build? Nena spent sleepless nights thinking about everything that had unfolded. She had loved Oso with all her heart, and even though his betrayal and infidelity had shattered her, she had never imagined that there were even more secrets hiding in the shadows. Chijoke's existence was a betrayal she hadn't seen coming. Still, she refused to jump to conclusions. The most important thing was to approach this situation with clarity and compassion. She couldn't let the bitterness of the past control her decisions. This was a new chapter, and she had to face it head on, no matter how difficult it was. The following day, Nena arranged a private meeting with Chijoke. She wanted to hear his side of the story, to understand his role in all of this. The meeting took place in the family's spacious living room, where Nena, Chibuzo, Adora, and Chiamaka sat across from him, trying to read him. He was quiet but composed, his demeanor respectful and calm. I know this is difficult for all of you. Chijoke began, his voice low but sincere. I done ask for this. I done ask to be part of your family's legacy, but I can't ignore the fact that I am a part of it. My father. Your husband. He was a part of my life, even if I didn't know him as a father. Nena sighed, feeling the weight of his words. You don't know how much this has shaken us. We've worked so hard to rebuild our lives after Oso's death, and now this revelation. It feels like we're back at square one. I understand, Chijoke replied, his eyes meeting hers. I never wanted to cause any harm. I I just want to understand where I fit into all of this. My father gave me everything, but I did not know why. I don't know the full story, and now that I do, I'm just trying to make sense of it. Nena looked at her children. They all appeared deep in thought, considering what Chijoke had said. Chibuzo was the first to speak. It is not about whether you want to be part of our family. It's about what Oso left behind. He made choices, and those choices affect all of us now. We have to figure out what those choices mean for the future. Adora added, we've worked too hard to let this divide us. But we cannot ignore the truth, either. We need to understand if you're here for the right reasons. Chijoke nodded, understanding the gravity of their concerns. I'm not here to claim anything that doesn't belong to me. I'm not interested in causing trouble. I just want to know more about the man who was supposed to be my father. And if there's a place for me, I want to find it. The room fell silent for a moment. Nena could see the sincerity in Chijoke's eyes, but the fear of losing everything they had worked for lingered in her heart. She could not ignore the fact that Oso's hidden life could complicate everything. There were legal matters to consider, and the family's wealth and legacy could be at stake. But above all, there was a deeper question that Nena couldn't shake. Who was Oso, really? Over the next few weeks, the family began to dig deeper into Oso's past. They hired more investigators, delving into his earlier life, his relationships, and his business dealings. What they uncovered was more than just financial transactions and old contacts. It was a picture of a man who had led a double life, one that was far more complicated than Nena had ever realized. Oso had been involved in several business ventures that had never been disclosed to Nena. He had made investments in companies and properties, and while some of them were successful, others were failing. It became clear that Oso's wealth had not come solely from the businesses Nena knew about. There were hidden assets, investments, and properties spread across different regions, many of which were tied to shady dealings that had never been mentioned in the family's official financial records. The more they uncovered, the more Nena realized that her understanding of Oso. And his legacy. Had been incomplete. There were mysteries she would never be able to solve, and decisions Oso had made that she would never fully understand. One thing was certain, though, Chijoke was not the only secret. The family had to make decisions not just about their future, but about how to handle Oso's hidden life. They could not ignore it any longer, no matter how painful the truth was. As Nena and her children sat together one evening, discussing their options, Nena finally spoke with resolve. We have to face the truth. We can't pretend this isn't happening. Oso left us with more than we bargained for. But that doesn't mean we have to let it destroy us. We will deal with this together. Chibuzo nodded, his voice firm. Together, as a family. Nena smiled at her children, feeling the strength of their unity. No matter what came next, they would face it as a team. Oso's legacy might have been filled with secrets, but they would write the next chapter. Their chapter. On their own terms. The truth about Oso's double life had shaken the family to its core. Nena, Chibuzo, Adora, Chiamaka, and even Chijoke were left to piece together the puzzle of a man they thought they knew, only to discover that he had been a stranger in many ways. But no matter how much they uncovered, the burden of his legacy weighed heavily on them. As the days passed, Nena found herself contemplating the future. The family's wealth was now in jeopardy. Oso's hidden dealings could either destroy them or force them to rebuild everything from scratch. There were legal battles to fight, property to secure, and family dynamics to navigate. But one thing was certain. They could not ignore the past any longer. Nena knew that they had to take control of their destiny. She refused to let Oso's secrets define their future. The family had endured too much to allow his mistakes to tear them apart. And yet, there was a new reality they had to face. Chijoke, the son Oso had kept hidden, was now a part of their lives. He had come into their world at a time when they were already vulnerable, and his presence was another complication they had to figure out. Nena sat in her office, staring out of the window as the sun dipped below the horizon. The weight of the decisions ahead felt almost too much to bear. Could they trust Chijoke? What role would he play in their lives moving forward? Was he an ally or just another person who would complicate matters further? She thought back to her conversation with Chijioke, to the sincerity in his eyes when he spoke about wanting to understand who he was and where he fit in. He didn't seem like a man after money or power. He just seemed lost, searching for a place in a world that had always kept him at arm's length. But the question remained. What did he really want from them? Was he genuinely seeking connection, or was there something more to his sudden appearance? As Nena sat lost in thought, Chibuzo entered the room, his face tense. "Mom, we need to talk," he said. His tone was serious, and Nena immediately sensed that something was weighing on him. "About what?" she asked, motioning for him to sit down. "It is about the family business," Chibuzo began, his voice heavy. "We need to take action. We've been sitting on this for too long, and the longer we wait, the worse things are going to get." Nena nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "What do you propose? We can let Oso's secrets control us. We need to make a move. Now. The legal battles are going to drag on forever unless we take charge. We need to secure the family assets, clean up the mess he left behind, and make sure that nothing can threaten the future of this family. But most importantly, we need to figure out what role Chijioke is going to play in all of this." "Chijioke." Nena sighed, unsure of what to think. "I don't know if we can trust him, Chibuzo. He's Oso's son, but that doesn't mean we owe him anything." Chibuzo placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice softening. "Mom, I know you're scared. I get it. But we can't make decisions based on fear. We need to look at this logically. Chijioke didn't ask for this. He didn't ask to be part of this family, and if he wanted to tear us apart, he could have done that already. But he hasn't. He wants to understand, just like we want to understand. He's a part of this family now, whether we like it or not." Nena listened to her son's words, his wisdom surprising her. She had always seen Chibuzo as strong and capable, but now she saw him in a new light. He was stepping up, taking responsibility, and offering solutions when she felt overwhelmed by the enormity of the situation. "You're right," she admitted, a sense of clarity beginning to form. "We need to take control of this. We can't keep waiting for things to fix themselves. It's time to act." Chibuzo nodded, a glint of determination in his eyes. "We'll face this together, Mom. We've got this." The family gathered together that night to discuss their next steps. Chijioke, though still a relative stranger, joined them in the living room. It was clear that he was nervous, uncertain of his place in the family. He had no idea what the future held, and neither did they, but the one thing they all agreed on was that they had to face it together. "We need to secure our legacy," Nena said, looking at her children and Chijioke. "Oso may have made mistakes, but we can't let those mistakes destroy everything we've worked for. We have to take control of our future." Adora spoke up, her voice calm but firm. "We need to separate Oso's past from our present. We can't let his secrets define us, but we also can't ignore the fact that they exist. We'll deal with the legal issues, but we also need to focus on rebuilding our reputation, our businesses, and our family." Chiamaka added, "We can't be afraid to move forward. We need to stand strong, no matter how hard it gets." Chijioke, sitting quietly, finally spoke. "I don't want to cause any problems. I just want to know where I stand. If you'll have me, I'm ready to be part of this family." Nena looked at him, her heart torn. The path ahead wasn't going to be easy, and the burden of Oso's legacy would never disappear. But one thing was clear. They were stronger together. "All right," Nena said, her voice filled with resolve. "Let's move forward. Together." As the family gathered around, united in their determination to move past the secrets of the past, Nena felt a new sense of hope. The future was uncertain, but they would face it as a family. The burden of Oso's legacy might be heavy, but they were ready to carry it. And create a new legacy of their own. The family had made their decision. The weight of the past could no longer hold them back. Together, they would face the challenges ahead, secure the future, and create their own legacy. It was a moment of transformation for Nena, Chibuzo, Adora, Chiamaka, and even Chijoke. What they had learned from Oso's secrets wasn't just about betrayal and loss. It was about resilience, unity, and the power of choice. In the weeks that followed, they took action. The first step was confronting Oso's hidden investments and business dealings. Nena, with the help of Chibuzo and legal advisors, worked tirelessly to unravel the complex web of assets that Oso had left behind. There were countless properties, both legitimate and shady, and a network of people who had once been loyal to Oso but were now eager to see what they could gain from his downfall. But Nena was not about to let anyone exploit the family's misfortune. She moved quickly, using the resources at her disposal to secure the family's remaining businesses and property. She made sure that every asset was accounted for and, with Chibuzo's expertise, they began selling off the failing ventures and consolidating their wealth into more stable investments. Chiamaka, the more tech-savvy of the family, took charge of rebranding the family's business image. She hired a public relations team to reshape the public's perception of the family, turning them from scandal-ridden heirs to pillars of the community once again. It was no easy task, but the family worked together, learning from each other's strengths and filling in the gaps where they needed help. Adora, who had always been quiet and thoughtful, found her own way to contribute. She started volunteering in the community, showing people that the family was more than just their wealth. She believed that, if they were going to move forward, they needed to earn back the trust of the people they had once been so disconnected from. Slowly but surely, their efforts paid off, and the family began to heal. As for Chijoke, his journey was far from over. Though he had been accepted into the family, he still struggled to find his place. He wanted to prove himself, but the shadow of Oso loomed over him. He could feel the weight of the past pressing down on him, making it hard to shake off the feelings of doubt. But as the family's fortune began to stabilize and their business ventures flourished, Chijoke slowly began to find his footing. He realized that he did not have to live in Oso's shadow. He could create his own path, one that was shaped by his choices and not by his father's mistakes. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Nena looked around the table at her children and Chijoke. The bond between them had grown stronger with every challenge they faced. They had learned to lean on each other, to support each other, and to never take their family for granted. "Look at us," Nena said, her voice filled with pride. "We've come so far. We've been through so much, but we've made it through together. No matter what happens, we've proven that we can overcome anything." Chibuzo, now more confident than ever, raised his glass in a toast. To family, to resilience, and to a new beginning. The family clinked their glasses, and for the first time in a long while, they all smiled. The future, while still uncertain, no longer seemed as daunting. They had learned from the past, and now, they were ready to create their own destiny. Over the months that followed, the family's businesses flourished. Their reputation was restored, and the community began to respect them once again. Nena, Chibuzo, Adora, Chiamaka, and even Chijoke had proven that they were capable of moving beyond Oso's legacy. They had built something of their own, something that was stronger, more unified, and more authentic than anything Oso had ever created. The family had learned that wealth and success were not just about money. It was about the people you surrounded yourself with and the values you held dear. They had learned that no matter how much you had, it could all be taken away in an instant. But the one thing that no one could ever take from them was their bond as a family. And so, with the burden of Oso's past finally behind them, they looked to the future with hope and optimism. They knew that challenges would always arise, but now, they were ready to face them together. As Nena sat on the balcony one evening, looking out over the sprawling estate that they had worked so hard to rebuild, she realized that they had not just survived Oso's legacy, they had overcome it. The family was stronger than ever, and the future was theirs to shape. As the years passed, the story of Oso and his family became one of transformation and redemption. The mistakes of the past no longer defined them, and they embraced their future with a renewed sense of purpose. Nena, Chibuzo, Adora, Chiamaka, and Chijioke had learned that the strength of a family wasn't measured by wealth or status, but by the love and trust that bound them together. Oso's life may have been one of secrets and deception, but the legacy of his family was now one of unity, resilience, and hope. They had faced their darkest moments and emerged stronger than ever. Each of them had learned that no matter what life threw at them, they had the power to rebuild, to grow, and to thrive. And so, as the sun set over their estate, Nena looked to her children and Chijioke, her heart full of pride. The story of their family was far from over. It was only just beginning. With the lessons of the past guiding them, they were ready to write their own future, a future defined by their choices, their strength, and the unbreakable bond they shared. The end. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life and legacy of Oso and his family. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more captivating tales. Your support means the world to me. Until next time, keep believing in the power of family, resilience, and a bright future. Bye.